The Coliseum it's one of those things where, you know, it was built however many years ago, and like 10 years ago, and people talk about this negativity like it happened yesterday, right? So a couple of things that I'd like to, you know, I think we should consider if I were on council. I want to consider possibly selling it. You know, maybe a private company could do a little bit better with it, and maybe they could buy down some of the debt, and we could use that debt for other capital projects. But I think when we look at the cost benefit, kind of like what Georgine said, what are all the benefits that we get? We talk all about the negatives, but what are the benefits? I know there's a lot of schools that have their big events there. There was an esports event there. And I think you have to, I think maybe there was like a false promise, and again, I wasn't there, about this would be something that would make a profit, right? And so do we look at it as something more cultural that benefits the community, like the BCPA, or if we look at it for profit, it's probably not very successful. I've talked to people, a lot of people have concerns. They talk about, you know, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, right? So they don't go to events because it leaves a bad taste, which is not a good thing. You know, I know that, like for instance, when they had the ice team there, right, the hockey team, like it's changed so many times that people can't get behind it. I know the Pepsi Coliseum does make money. So I think we need to look at all solutions for that. So, thank you.
Our contract with our current management company is up, I believe, in April. Is that right, Terry? And I know we're going to have a really hard look at whether we want to renew that or not. Losing the kind of money that we're losing is simply not acceptable. I don't want to argue the merits. We have the building, so what are we going to do with it? I think that I personally heard some really interesting ideas come our way, and I think maybe we want to do a little crowdsourcing of some of those ideas. We might want to take it in-house. It's interesting to me that we have a Pepsi ice rink that the city owns, and we have a building that the city owns but doesn't manage, so those things are out of sync. I don't think we found that sweet spot yet, but clearly we need to do more things. Love the idea of bringing in more youth-oriented sports, and you know, I just think there's an opportunity for ideas there that we have not fully explored, but what's going on right now for me personally is not acceptable.
I'll keep this short because it's essentially just building on what other people have said, but someone recently said to me, why don't you just make 2 ice rinks? Because the Pepsi Ice Center is actually making money. But it does seem to me that we can leverage what is working, but it's a problem, so I know that we're all going to have to do something about it. And another thought that, you know, as we consider the management structure of this facility is to think about investing in local talent. I mean, there are lots of local resources here, and they know a lot about marketing, about cultural events, about how to make such a venue perhaps start to turn the tide and take a profit. So it's a good opportunity for local talent development. All right. Anybody else?
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. You want to have another question on the floor? Dave.
As future representative of the city of Bloomington, where do you guys see this thing going as far as a forward-looking growth plan? You know, Mayor Renner and I talked about this. In the state of Illinois, we're going to have to address issues. We know that it's $250 billion, depending on who you listen to, in unfunded liabilities. Do you guys have a working understanding of what exactly that dollar amount is? I know at one time it was reported there were over $80 million in street repairs, and we decided that 10% of that would be good to allocate for. Where do you guys see the end game? Because ultimately, taxpayers want you to represent their interests. In fact, I signed on when I ran against Dan Brady for state representative to the taxpayer bargain. It came out from Kyle McCarter's office. And it went line by line addressing all the issues. Do you guys know, I'd like to hear a number, really, in your answer, of where we currently are and how soon you think we can get out of that indebtedness.
The floor? Donna?
That's an easy question.
Okay, the microphone's not working, so you have to really project on it. Okay.
That's an easy question. I'm kidding. I do not know the exact number, but I do know that Jim Karsh, for years, has been saying that we need to spend $8 million per year for decades, 60 years, in order to bring our infrastructure, just the streets, up to the level of fair. So for streets alone, that's 60 years out, spending $8 million per year. So I have no idea with the sewers. We still have combined sewers. I don't know if any of you understand this. This comes from my medical background. It's like the Middle Ages. Fecal material mixed with rainwater. Where does it go? Seeps into the ground, okay? It's very expensive to replace, but it needs to be replaced. That's a public health issue. You'd have to ask Chip Karch how much. I don't think he's brought it to the council for fear everyone would have a heart attack. So, I don't know the number. I'm not sure anyone in this room, I'm not sure the staff knows the number, but there are a lot of major work processes that need to be taken care of.
Anyone else care to address the question about?
I'll just weigh in. I have to say, I don't think we know that number, and it's a very challenging question that you're asking us. Some of the solutions have to do with working closely with folks like Heath Summer and Bill Brady, and having that strong partnership for pension funding. Where I live, last year, I finally got a sewer. And I live in the middle of town. I live in a historic district, but we had a wildcat sewer. We didn't know where it went until one of our sons decided to flush something down the toilet one year. So we have miles and miles of that as well. And we need to keep our eyes on the priorities that the council has set forth for infrastructure, which includes not just our roads, but what's underneath our roads, and building that economic engine that will help all of us together. The pensions, we can't solve those on our own. Those we're going to need leadership from Springfield in collaboration with Springfield. But those things are looming on us, and it's a very serious question that you're asking.
Do you have anyone?
I think it's called deferred maintenance, right? And it's been deferred for a long time. And I think where it's been deferred the most is the west side and downtown. And I think we owe it to those people in the community and to the entire city to get those things right. I've talked a lot with Rob Fazzini, who maybe some of you know, and he talks about the fact that when we talk about our budget and a balanced budget, is it really balanced when we have all this deferred maintenance and deferred pension obligations? So we need to make tough decisions. I think on the pension, isn't there something where we have an agreement to try to get it funded, one of the pensions?
100%.
By a certain year?
Yeah, 2040.
So we're taking action there, but I think we really need to focus on infrastructure, so thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just add that not one of us individually can figure out this huge problem. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, and there's no way to think about doing this even locally, like with something regarding the pension costs. We have to work in collaboration with the state. I've become really interested in other sources of funding. There seem to me a lot of opportunities to seek out and potentially apply for block grants that can help with infrastructure development or can help with some of the kind of restoration and rehabilitation that is so essential in parts of our communities. So I think that if we're committed to continuing to think about trying to find alternative venues for funding and constantly balancing what needs to be attended to first, that sort of planning, financial planning, which is one of the cornerstones of the priorities going forward, then it's not going to be fixed overnight, but we can take steps towards a better solution.
I think the first thing is you need to be proactive. And number one in doing that is to find out what that number is. And until we know what that number is, we can't plan to eliminate it. So we really need to focus on what that number is, being proactive once we receive that to determine our best course of action. Then, next year when we're sitting here and you ask that question, we can tell you when that will happen.
Okay, yes, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. I've always been a very much an advocate of when you say it's going to end at a time, you end it at the time. And now it's time to end it. I want to invite you, I'm sure the candidates would be happy to talk with you after we are just officially dismissed here. A couple of announcements I do want to be sure and share though. In our upcoming schedule, you'll see on your table, we have these little handy little reminder notes of our program in May. This is going to be our Lincoln Reagan Day event that we're really excited about. We have the White House chef, Martin Mangiello. He is a White House chef who served under 5 presidents. He's coming to share his program that he's taking nationally called the Inside the President's Cabinet. So not only is he going to tell us tales about being with the different presidents, he's also going to cook and present a presidential dish as part of the program. So we'll be right here on May 17th. There's a little note to take home and remind yourself. There'll be more details coming. Next month we will be back here at the same place on February, next month, 2 weeks. Originally it was going to be next month when we started this. Hopefully the weather holding it for us. On the 16th of February, we will be back here at the same time, same place, to hear from our normal city council candidates. So I encourage you to come back and hear what they have to say. And then in March, on March 16th, we will be back for more breakfast. And that will be a time when our elected representatives from both the county, the state, and the federal level will be here to share updates on what's happening in our government. And that will be a very informative time for you to ask some good questions and hear what's happening in our different levels of government, kind of a state of the union of everything in March. So please go to our website. You'll see details and ability to get tickets at McLeanCountyRepublicans.org or our Facebook page too. We hope to see you back in 2 weeks. Come back and hear what the normal city council candidates have. But for now, we are thankful for you being here. We hope you all stay safe and warm and come back again. And thank you very much to our candidates for making themselves available today.